Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Chai Together. This is your host and founder, Pratibha Day. Today we have with us Dr. Kasundra Brown, also known as the Tilted Fedora Trainer. Dr. K loves God's word and building his people. She has participated in numerous youth, women, and family conferences. She passionately educates, edifies, and encourages her audience by teaching and preaching biblical truth. She does not possess a doctorate. However, the name was given to her by her virtual prayer group, which she attended for 15 weeks. She's overcome clinical depression during her divorce, which led her to write her book, Moving Beyond Betrayal, Help Getting Past What You May Never Get Over. Her public speaking brand is the Tilted Fedora Trainer, and she served the roles of an assistant pastor, Christian education director, youth and women's pastor. So everyone, let's welcome this incredible, credible, and honorable woman, Dr. K. We're so happy to have you.
Wow, Pratibha, thank you. I am so excited and happy to be here. I'm grateful that you invited me to be a guest on your podcast. And congratulations on launching this. This is awesome.
Yes, thank you. So let's start with the name of your public brand, the Tilted Fedora Trainer. Will you tell us more about that, please?
Yes, I will. The brand came from a friend of mine who saw me at an event, or she saw a picture of me in a fedora. And she and I were talking back and forth about what we really love to do. If we could, that question, if you could do anything and knew you would succeed, what would you do? What's that dream? What's that goal? And I've always wanted to be a professional public speaker. I've been in ministry for years, but I've never made a living at it. And she said, you look good in fedoras. Why don't you, wear a fedora and then make that your brand? So when it hit and I started buying fedoras, my sons bought me a fedora when we were in Antigua. My oldest son did a destination wedding. And while we were in Antigua, my younger sons and I saw a fedora. So my first fedora is a leopard fedora purchased out of Antigua. And I combined that with my friend's statement, you look good in fedoras. Why don't you wear one when you speak? And then people will remember the lady in the tilted fedora.
Yes.
And that's where it started. So it became the Tilted Fedora. And then because I love words and I love alliteration and assonance, it was okay. I always wear the fedora tilted because I think that's how it looks best. And I'm a teacher trainer by nature. So it just kind of flowed together, the Tilted Fedora Trainer.
So how many do you own? Do you have a count?
About 30. About 30.
That's a good amount, not enough. So we have some control. So would mine be considered a fedora?
Yours is actually not a fedora.
Yeah.
Yours is, and there's a name for I found out doing this that there's a name for these hats. Right. And yours is actually called, I believe it's a bucket hat.
Oh, wow. It's perfect for my background. In the field.
But I believe it's actually, but if you flipped it up a little bit, if you flipped up your brim, yeah. It could.
Oh, I understand.
Ooh, no. Maybe. Yeah, you'd have to tilt down the front and then roll up the back.
Oh,
there you
I
go.
Understand. I don't believe this one is good for it.
That was actually more of a bucket hat. But I did find out there are all kinds of hats and they have names. And my fedora is actually the Trilby fedora. And it was worn very, very awesomely and wonderfully by Tom Landry, one of my favorite coaches, because he coached the Cowboys when I was a kid. But it's a Trilby fedora, which is the one I wear, versus the gangster fedora, which has a wider brim. So everything you wanted to know about fedoras but didn't know who to ask, here you go.
All right, awesome. So tell me more about the virtual prayer group that you attended. Did you attend that before or after your divorce?
Actually, after my divorce, and it actually lasted 15 months. You were at 15 months. It actually lasted 15 months. It was a year and a quarter, and there were 12 of us who were core, and we call ourselves the Corner Sisters.
Yeah.
And then we had as many as 25, 30 women who would join in at different points. But on any given day, the 12 of us were pretty much always there. We did Bible study together. We did prayer together. We had discussions about life and circumstances. It was a true no judgment zone. That's what made it so beautiful. truly no judgment, no topic, there were no sacred cows. Whatever topic whatever issue you were dealing with, you could bring that to the table. And any time, 12 women to 30 or 40 women were willing to pray with you, counsel you, encourage you, whatever you needed. When I was first invited to the group, now you have to understand this group met at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, my time. And I'm a night owl, I'm not an early bird. But this group turned me into an early bird who can pull night owl stunts.
Wow.
But we met every Monday through Friday like clockwork, and really rarely was anybody late. So at 12 o'clock, we were all on the phone. Then we discovered Zoom, and we went into Zoom. And then we started doing trainings. So we started looking at the different gifts and abilities of the women in the group and saying, okay, what do you know about? What have you experienced? Teach us about how you got through it. And one day they were, I don't remember what the subject was, but when I first started the group, I was very quiet. And one day I weighed in on the conversation. And the leader of the group, her name is Tiara Destiny Reed, she said, ooh, I'm going to call you Dr. K. You sound like a doctor. That's it. From now on, you are She said, girl, you sound like a doctor. From now on, you're Dr. K. And the next day, she asked me a question. So Dr. K, what do you think about that? And then the other women were, I agree with Dr. K, and it stuck. So from then on, I was Dr. K. So I took that on as one of my names, because they began to use it online. We started a Facebook group. So they used it in the Facebook group. They used it on my page. It stuck.
Wow.
And I just thought it was kind of cute. So I try to always let people know that I don't have a doctorate's degree. I don't have a counseling degree. A bunch of women that I love and who I'm grateful love me, gave me the name, and I'm honored by it.
That's great. So how long have you had the name now?
I've had the name now 2 years.
Oh, wow. Not very long. Just good enough.
Not very long. No. The group happened well after the divorce. It came along at a very, very great time in my life, when I needed the encouragement, I needed the sisterhood, I needed the camaraderie, and that's what they provided.
Yes. So I believe that the group may have been that savior for you, like being in the group. It really helped because you need that support to get through something that, that serious.
Yeah.
So during that time, were you already suffering with clinical depression, like when you entered the group?
No, the clinical depression happened. My divorce happened 13 years ago. So the clinical depression actually happened during the divorce. But this group, as I came out of it, I've always said that, finding friends is hard, being accepted is hard. I was the strange kid. I was the nerd before nerds existed. So I was the kid with the gigantic vocabulary. I was the kid who was the teacher's pet. I wasn't a nerd like Steve Urkel. More like, what's the other guy from the Big Bang?
Carlton?
More like that guy.
Yeah.
The one that's OCD.
Yeah, I don't want.
They've done a movie of him as a child. Sheldon.
Maybe
His name is Sheldon.
Comment.
It's Sheldon. I was more like Sheldon. I was the really super intelligent kid, not genius, but very intelligent, loved to read, loved words, and was every teacher's pet. So the other kids made fun of me. Plus, I grew up in now you can't escape the race issues going on in America. But I grew up in a predominantly Black community, and I didn't speak like the other kids. I didn't do Ebonics, so I wasn't saying kitten, I said kitten.
Yeah.
I didn't say I'm gonna do something. I said I'm fixing to, I'm going to. In my family, we were taught to say our words clearly and distinctly. So I didn't sound like the other children, and they made fun of me because of that. They told me, you're trying to be white. You're always trying to sound white. You're an Oreo, just a lot of that. So I never belonged to the group. I was never accepted in the bigger group. And as a result, having good friends, being in relationships with women, at any given point, I might have one or two friends that I was close to, and that would be it. So, traveling around, being the girl who got asked to the prom, being the one who made the cheerleader, I was not that girl. I was not that kid. And when I moved, I was in Boston when I got the divorce. I moved to Dallas, Texas. When I moved here, I lamented because I just couldn't make any friends. I couldn't find anybody to be friends with. And then I made friends with a lady, and that friendship broke up. So then I went into a milder depression. And I was just like, I need a friend. I need a friend. And a woman that I met invited me to the prayer group, and they became my circle of friends.
Wow.
And they gave me that acceptance that I so desperately needed, that relationship that I so desperately needed. We traded phone numbers, so we didn't just talk during the phone call in the morning.
Yeah.
If something happened during the day, we were on the phone. We started a messenger group. So at any point in the messenger group, we would do phone calls, and there'd be 4 or 5 of us on a phone call. I had to travel. And we started phone calls. Dr. K, are you okay? Where are you now on the road? You know, if you start to get sleepy or tired, check in with us so somebody can keep you awake. And they surrounded and embraced me. So yeah, they were a savior. And it wasn't that depression wasn't clinical, but it was definitely a mild depression in that area.
And where did you meet the lady? I remember you stated her name already.
Tierra Destiny is the one who gave me the name, the one who invited me to the group. We actually met at a pastor's installation at a church.
Oh, wow.
Where we both knew the pastor and his wife. I knew the pastor from work. She knew the pastor from the church that they both attended. So we met. You know how you see somebody and you go, I know you, you're familiar. Yeah. And we just sat down, and it's like, I know that I know you. Why do I know you? Turns out she actually worked with my mom.
Wow.
And because I look so much like my mom, she said, I know you. And we started in the South. We said, who are your people? Who are your parents? Who are your cousins? Because we know somebody in common. Turned out she had worked with my mom for over 10 or 15 years.
Wow. And
then she had heard me speak at a women's event. So those two, and we were like, I knew it. And then at that event, she said, here's a group you need to join. These ladies you'll love it. It's a morning prayer meeting. It's 4 a.m. I said, I do not do.
So
early
what
morning meetings. Be with
Yeah, Dr. K, so what led you to wake up for the 4 a.m. the first time? How did that go?
I fell asleep.
Oh. Like during it?
It was actually 5 a.m. It was 5 a.m. There was another class at 4 a.m. Yeah. And I made both of them. But probably for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I spent more time asleep than I spent awake. But she would, I saw you on the call, hang in there. I saw you on the call, and she would just keep saying, anytime she saw me, she would call me afterwards. And she said, I saw you on the call. Just keep coming, because I'm serious. I'd have to remember to mute the mic because I would go to sleep.
Did you snore?
And then eventually, well, it's not necessarily a snore. It's not a roar snore. But it is one of those that lets you know I'm not engaged in the conversation.
Just a little bit.
So
yeah.
Keep coming. It's going to work. You'll be all right. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, it was first, okay, you can't be on the phone call laying in the bed in the dark. Doesn't work. So then you have to get up and go ahead and make your coffee. That will help you. So I'd get up 15 minutes before the call, make my coffee, and then during the call, sit up at the kitchen table and drink my coffee. And then I stopped going to sleep. And then I started waking up before the call. It became a part of my life.
Yes.
And so we would tell new people as they came to the call. I made friends with one of the other ladies who lives in this area, because we are from literally all over the place. There are women from Georgia, we had one from New York, Baltimore, the Virgin Islands.
Oh, wow.
We had a couple of ladies from South Africa.
Yes.
One lady, she was on her lunch in South Africa, so she would come on during her lunch.
Wow.
So we were literally from all over the place. And the one who was in Dallas made friends with me. And she said, I just can't stay awake. And I said, same thing they told me, keep coming. Just get up and keep coming. You're going to start waking up for it. And she would she would fall asleep, and she would text me and say, I fell asleep. What did I miss? But after about 3 or 4 weeks, I said, don't worry, keep showing up, because it's going to become part of you. And the next thing we knew, she would show up 2 or 3 times a week, then 4 or 5 times a week, and then she'd be up, and then she'd start to participate in the conversation, and then she'd be on the phone call before I was on the phone call. And I'd get on and I'd message her, I see you here, congratulations, you beat me.
Yeah, she surpassed you.
Yeah, she started getting on before me or getting on right after me. So, and as soon as I saw her, we gave each other that affirmation.
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw her in the participant group, I would send her a private message. Good morning. So glad you woke up.
Wow.
So glad you made it.
It's the accountability.
If she woke up.
Yes, it's the accountability.
Yeah. We became an accountability group. And if you mentioned something in the group that you were struggling with, you'd get asked, how is that going for you? What happened with you? We bring in prayer requests. It was, how's your aunt? How's your mom? How's your uncle? What's the praise report? And then we went into the trainings, and it was each person had an opportunity to teach. So it's really an effective group. I can recommend to anybody if you need it. It was a lifesaver. That's all.
Sounds it.
And it led to the Tilted Fedora Trainer, because it led to, you have so much significant information. It was just, you're a wealth of information. Where did you get all of this? Well, I'm a reader.
Wow.
And I learned by reading and writing. So
wow.
And I just said, I read a lot. And they'd be like, but you've got an answer for every question. I read a lot. And when you're
since you were
nobody
young. Yeah,
you read.
You were young. So speaking of reading, let's dig into your book. Tell everyone about
it. Yes. Can I show you the cover? Let's see if we can get the cover to show up right.
Oh, it's virtual. I'm going to link all the information below afterwards.
My camera is not cooperating with showing the book cover, but the book is Moving Beyond Betrayal, Help Getting Past What You May Never Get Over. And it actually came out of the teaching that I did in the group. The leader of the group, Tiara Reed, said, Dr. K, you need to do a teaching. And she said, can you do something for a month? And I'm serious, it freaked me out. I said, I don't know if I can talk every morning for a month for 30 or 40 minutes. And again, the woman who invited me to the group, her name is Roz. We call her the Smile Queen or the Smile Ambassador. She said, why don't you do something on that? Remember when I heard you speak, you spoke at that event. Why don't you do something based on that message? And I remember the name of the message was, While Waiting for You, I Found Me.
Wow.
While waiting for you, I found me. It was a women's event, and it was a message targeted to single women, not to keep waiting on the man to make them whole, but to become whole in themselves. It's based on the life of Leah from the Bible. She is the unloved wife of Jacob, who is a patriarch of Israel. He's the father of the 12 tribes. Well, she had 8 of those 12 sons. She's the father of 12 sons. Each son represents a tribe. Leah was the mother of 6, and the surrogate, she had 2 by a surrogate and 6 on her own. So she's the mother of 8 of those tribes. And when I studied the names of the tribes, I discovered that those names chronicled her journey through life. Her first son's name was Misery. The second son's name means unloved. The third son's name means unattached. And when I say unattached, hoping for a hookup. The fourth son's name, though, means this time I will praise. And she moves from miserable, unloved, unattached to praise. And after praise, the names take a drastic turn. The next son's name is Fortunate.
Wow.
After Fortunate, she becomes Happy. After Happy, she feels she is rewarded. And the last son's name is Respect.
Wow.
I said, that is a powerful, powerful story. So when I began to develop the teaching, I broke it into 4 different sections based on this experience. And the first part of her story, it begins with betrayal. When we find out about Leah, we find a man has entered their life, Jacob. He falls madly in love with her sister, and Leah is not considered good looking. The Bible says she has soft eyes. And in a culture where people are draped, They were facial coverings. Women are not allowed to expose themselves. All you could really see were her eyes. But Rachel was considered beautiful of form and face. Well, Jacob falls madly in love with Rachel. And Leah is just somebody he knows as his girlfriend's sister. He agrees to work 7 years so that he can marry Rachel. And on the wedding night, the father of the two girls, their sisters, he tells Leah to go in and pretend to be her sister Rachel and consummate the marriage. So it starts with betrayal. And Leah does it. So now you've got all the family drama around that. And we taught about the family drama. But there are 4 sections to the teaching. And I'm working on the next book, or about to start it, and it's Moving Beyond Misery.
Wow.
Moving Beyond Betrayal is actually a workbook. So people say, I'm going to buy your book and read it. And I go, you don't just read this one, you work through this one.
I think those are the
There
best.
are questions that ask you to examine a betrayal.
Yes.
Because as I went through it, and I thought, oh, wow, Leah's story is a nice story. And I don't identify with her. But once I went through the process, I realized, oh, no, you do identify with Leah. You can remember being betrayed and what that felt like in the divorce. You can remember when I went through the misery stage, that was the clinical depression. And that was a rough time. I'm a woman in ministry. I went from being a single mother to a married mother to a single mother again. I was in a commission-only sales job. I moved out of my home. I gave the house to my ex, and I moved out of the home. So I set up a whole new household. Now I'm handling all the bills on my own in a commission-only job.
Wow.
With 2 young boys, one in college that I've got to keep encouraged, another son in the military, and then the 2 young sons. So just all of the weight. I hit a point where I was crying, literally. If you looked at me for 5 minutes or 2 or 3 minutes, I would break into tears. If you asked me how I was doing, I would break into tears. If you asked me what was for dinner, I would break into tears. And I went to a friend of mine, recommended that I see a counselor. And she said, you know, if you're going to stay, the marriage started to really disintegrate, she said, if you're going to stay married to him, you need to see a counselor so that you learn how to cope in the marriage. And that was my goal in seeing a counselor, was not to get a divorce. It was learn to cope with my husband. But he didn't want to get a counselor, and he got worse as I worked on getting better. Then some of the things that he had been doing during the marriage came to light. And that's where the real betrayal came from. And so I'm dealing with the thoughts. How could he do this to me? How could he say that to me? How could he treat our family with this kind of disregard? And that was so, I just looked at my therapist and I said, I can't stop crying. And I'm in her office in tears. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I'm crying literally all the time. If I'm not asleep, I'm in tears. And then I might even wake up in the night. If I have a dream, I wake up and start crying. I go to bed in tears. I wake up in tears. And I'm fighting back tears when I'm with my sons, because I'm trying not to show them that, you know, I'm dying inside. She connected me to a clinical psychologist nurse who had prescription writing privileges, and I was on an antidepressant for a little while.
Wow.
So I recommend to anybody going through a tough time, especially for those who are in the church, because once we get into the church, we think our relationship with Jesus, our relationship with the Lord, makes us immune to emotional hurt, emotional baggage, psychological issues. And I tell people at that point, I was a preacher, I was a pastor, I was a youth ministry director, I was doing women's ministry conferences. I was very, very well known in the greater Boston community.
Yes.
So yeah, can you imagine having to preach and hold back tears at the same time? Not bringing all you're dealing with into the pulpit. And I tell people now, go get help.
Yes.
There's a reason God gave us doctors. There's a reason God gave us medicine. And the Bible does say that he heals all of our diseases. Sometimes he does it miraculously. Sometimes he does it medicinally. and we have to accept whichever route is the one that is best for us to take.
I agree with that.
So now I encourage women, if you're at that point, in fact, go get help before you get to that point. Go get help before you get to that point, because it's not a good place to be. I was in the midst of the depression. I became suicidal.
Wow, yeah.
And I was, when I told my counselor about it, she said, there are 4 stages of suicide. And I went, oh, okay, what? The first question she asked was, why didn't I call her? I said, and why didn't I go to the emergency room? And I said, I don't want to lose my boys. Massachusetts is notorious for taking children. I said, I didn't want to lose my kids. So I fought my way through it. She said, well, if you go to the emergency room, you are less likely to lose your children because they know then that you're trying to get help. You're getting intervention. But she said there are 4 stages. And I remember that. She said the first stage is you just say, that's it. I want to die. I'm going to go hang myself. She said, it's in the spur of the moment. It's in the heat of the conversation. And everybody knows you're not telling the truth. She said the second stage, though, is when you start to say it a little more often. And it comes with the depression. And you're starting to fixate on death. You're starting to think about death. She said the third stage is when you make a plan. The fourth stage is when you carry it out or you make the attempt. When I told her that I had a suicidal moment, she said, oh, really? So if you were going to commit suicide, how would you do it? And I gave her the plan.
Wow.
I was riding in a car. I was riding in a car on, if you're familiar with Massachusetts, Route 24, leaving my home headed toward Boston. I lived in Brockton. And I'm driving and I have this vision, serious. While I'm driving, I see myself sitting in a pit, in a pit, literally, like a well. And I couldn't move. I'm sitting Indian style like this in the well. There's no room to move. The only way that I can move is to put my head up. So I put my head up and I could see the circle of the sunlight. And then all of a sudden there was an eclipse. And literally somebody closed the circle. And I was in complete and total darkness. And I heard a voice say, you can end this pain. You can stop this. And that's when I made the plan. You can go pick up some wine. You got a good sharp knife. My favorite artist is Gladys Knight. You can put on some Gladys Knight music. You can get some candles. You can draw a nice hot bubble bath. You can have your glass of wine. You can slit your wrist. And you won't be found for 3 days. I'm serious. It was just that clear. It was just that clear. And I praise God because I heard a different voice. I heard a different voice. I heard a voice say, Cassandra, called me by name. You are tired. You are scared. And you need to rest. And it literally said, go home and rest. So I immediately pulled a U-turn and on the freeway, took the next exit, and I went home. My son called me. I had a son who's living in Florida going to college. And he just called and he said, Mom, how you doing? And I lied, I'm okay. I'm good, baby, I'm good. And he said, no, how you doing, Mom? You don't sound good. I said, no, I'm all right. Just had a long day. I'm just a little tired. I think I'm going to take a nap. Now, he doesn't know what's in the back of my head. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to let you get your rest. And he hung up. He told me after the fact that he told a friend of his. He said, I think my mom's going to try to kill herself. And he said he immediately went into his room and he cried the rest of the night. He said, because I don't know how I'm going to live without her, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop her. I'm in Florida. She's in Massachusetts. He didn't think about calling 911 and saying, my mom just sounds suicidal. Can somebody go check on her? So he did that. He had that conversation. I hung up the phone and I laid down. Now, this is where it becomes really supernatural. I laid down and I wrestled. I felt a pressure literally push me down on the bed. And I wrestled trying to get up for 3 hours. And after 3 hours, I went to sleep.
Wow.
When I woke up, I wasn't in darkness anymore. The sun was shining. And I was feeling better, wondering what just happened to me. Was I really thinking about ending my life? For anybody who's considering suicide, know this. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Whatever you are dealing with, it's temporary. It will not last forever. It is not where you will remain. So do not take a permanent solution to a problem that will change. And it may take a few days. It may not change overnight, but it will change. You're not in a permanent location. Do not do that to yourself. And do not do that to the people that you love. I knew exactly it was a Friday. So my sons had just gone to their father's house for the weekend. So I knew it would be Sunday before anybody would find me. Can you imagine an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old finding their mom? The pain that I would have inflicted on them and on my own mother and on my friends. You are loved. Whoever you are loved. There are people who care about you. There are people who care for you. Get into that community of those who will love on you and accept you. Had I had that phone call that I was doing for the 2 years here, for the 15 months here, had I had that then, suicide would have never been a consideration.
I agree.
Would have never been a thought.
I'm just at a loss for words because I'm very engaged in your story. Like, I'm in awe, just listening. I'm just tunnel vision in. Wow, Dr.
It was, when I tell people it was one of the most real experiences I have ever had. I literally drove in the dark.
Yes.
When that light closed, I was surrounded in my car in darkness. And when I heard, you can end this pain, you don't have to hurt any longer.
Mm-hmm.
You can stop. And it's when you're in that kind of hurt, it's an enticing idea. It really is. It's an enticing idea. And it made complete sense in the moment. In that moment, it was a logical idea. And that gave me a heart for anybody who's considering suicide, because I know what it feels like. And I know the logic and the reasoning and how you have to fight against it, how you have to go and get. And I was afraid, and that's the other thing. I was afraid if I tell anybody, they're going to have me hospitalized, and that's going to bring in the authorities, and my kids are going to be left with their dad. And he was the last person they needed to be with. Turns out I had to admit that he was verbally and emotionally abusive. And he was abusive towards me, and not just me, but towards the children as well. So they didn't need to be stuck with him. But I didn't want to be fighting the state to get my children back.
Yeah.
So it was if it had not been for and I have to say it was the Spirit of God, if it had not been for the Holy Spirit's intervention, I would not be having this conversation with you today.
Yes, because the prior guest I had, Kawan Glover, he also had the similar experience where something was pressing him down as he was going up to heaven. And he stated that something kept him to live, pressed him down, just like you stated the same experience. Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah. It definitely. I remember fighting to get out of the bed. And when an arm moved, an arm got put back. It was a all I can say is there were 3 or 4 angels surrounding the bed. And every wing, every arm, that arm is moving, get it back. She's trying to roll over, keep her down.
Oh, wow.
Because had I gotten out of the bed, and literally, had I gotten out of the bed, I would have gone. But that 3-hour fight and then 3 hours of rest by the afternoon. And by the time it happened in the morning, so by about 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I called my son back and I said, I'm much better now.
Wow.
And that's when he told me, he said, Mom, I'm so glad to hear your voice. I said, why? He said, after our conversation, you just didn't sound right. And I told my roommate, I think my mom's going to commit suicide today. He said, I think I'm going to lose my mom tonight. And I don't know how to handle it. And he said, literally, he spent the rest of the night in his bedroom trying to imagine life without me.
And children should not have to go through that.
They should that.
No.
No.
But you stopped it
That is an
because it could have been
experience that should
worse
not
if
happen.
you were gone. So you stopped it.
Much worse. And he just, when he heard my voice, he just, Mom, I'm so glad. I was like, yeah, baby, I know I was in a really bad place.
Wow.
I was in a bad place, but I am better now. And then I told the therapist made me, she said, because this has happened once, and we know you're in this state of depression, there's a likelihood that it could happen again.
Mm-hmm.
We need to create a plan. So who are the two people that you can call that will come running when you say, I need help? I was blessed with two very good girlfriends. And if I called, they came running. And so I gave my therapist their numbers. And she said, I want you to go to each one of them, tell them exactly what happened, and give them my number. Said, and then if you ever have that thought again, she said, even if it is just a passing thought, you don't even have to get as deep as you got that time. If it is a passing thought, if it's during business hours, call me. If it's my regular office hours. If it's not, if it's on the weekend, call one of them. And then have them call me. And you go get with some people. Do not entertain that thought again for even an instant.
Dr. K.
And that's how we dealt with it.
You're such a woman of wisdom. You're so wonderful, funny, fun, full of life, joyful, just incredible. It makes me emotional. Like, I'm so glad you're here. You're awesome. You're just awesome.
Thank you for
that.
I want to hear more of your story.
Yes.
Because I think what
more of my story is
growing up with a mom who had mental issues, that has to be I can't imagine that. I can't imagine, even though when my mom was younger, my mom went through a depression stage as she and my father were going through a divorce. So I literally replayed with what my mom experienced. I don't know that she was ever suicidal, but I know that she went through a depression because I remember it as a child.
Yeah.
And I remember her, coming in from work and immediately going to sleep. She'd come in, fix dinner, and that she would check out.
Mm.
And we were 3 kids with a mom who was sleeping. So we were never left alone, but she wasn't engaging either because she was dealing with.
She wasn't present.
She wasn't present.
I understand.
And I don't, now that I understand what she was experiencing, there is no anger, animosity, or unforgiveness. I know she was in pain.
Yeah.
But that story is actually the close of my book. The book has 4 chapters.
Wow.
4 sections. The first one is Moving Beyond Betrayal. The second one is Moving Beyond Misery. The third one, and that's not this book, I'm sorry, those are the 4 books that I'm writing attached to this. In this book, the 4 chapters are, I want to say them right. We deal with practicing self-care, choosing to forgive, rebuilding trust, and bringing closure. So those are the 4 steps, and I liken it to taking a journey. I tell people you're going to take a journey. Like you take a walk, you're going to take 4 significant steps that will move you past a betrayal. It's not something you can get over. When I in addition to everything else, I had a miscarriage at 5 months. So when you miscarry that early, you have to actually deliver the baby.
Wow. And
that I didn't know. They said, oh no, you go through labor and you deliver the baby that you can't take home. And someone I know said, just get over it. Just get over it. You're young. You'll have more kids. I just went, you don't get over you. It's not like it's. I know somebody would say you're climbing a mountain. Just get over it. Just keep going. Life is, okay. You're not going to be in my list of folk that.
No.
Because to be that inconsiderate.
Yes.
And it was just get over it. You're young. You're going to have more kids. Get over it. You don't just get over that. You don't just get over that kind of a loss.
No. That
takes time. That's a journey. And that's where the title, Help Getting Past What You May Never Get Over. You do have to get beyond that moment.
Wow.
But, it's not like just, toss a ball. You don't necessarily get over it, but you don't have to stay locked in that moment. It doesn't have to be your new residence. So in the book, I refer to betrayal as a jail cell. And it's a place where we get stuck, camped out, reliving that experience over and over again, wondering why didn't we see it coming, wondering how could I have been fooled like that? How did I not know? The embarrassment, what are other people thinking? What are they thinking of me? Since I was married, and my betrayal happened in the marriage, since I was married to this guy, do they think less of me? How will it affect my reputation? How will it affect my ministry? Will I still be able to look my friends in the eye when they understand what happened in the marriage? And when people talk, when that information goes through the community. I found out that he was literally going to people that I knew. Now remember, I'm a minister, I'm a preacher. He was going to pastors, telling them all kinds of lies about me. And he had done that from the beginning of the marriage. We were married 12 years.
Wow.
So from 6 months into the marriage, he started trying to destroy my reputation. And when that, oh my gosh. And I think that may be what triggered the depression, is to find out that he is actually going behind my back and telling people negative information about me. And I'm thinking, why would you marry somebody and then try to ruin their reputation? Why would you do that? Why, if you don't like who they are or what they do, walk away. You didn't have to marry me.
Yes.
But that was, I found out in abuse, they try to isolate. Part of abuse pattern and behavior is isolation.
Yes.
So he started working from the beginning of the marriage to isolate me.
That's narcissism as well.
And, oh yeah, I was married to a classic narcissist.
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone should get this book. Dr. K, everyone can relate to this book, and I'm sure some aspect of it will resonate with everyone. So everyone get this book.
Yeah. There are bits and pieces of my story in the book. I'm going to write another book on the story itself, and bits and pieces, and we're trekking through Leah's life as we go through this. Now in the entire series, it's moving beyond betrayal, moving beyond misery, moving beyond your attachment style. Because remember, she's unloved, she's miserable, she's unattached. I had to find out when I went through the divorce. I told one of my friends, so she said, so when are you going to start dating? I said, not for a year minimum. And she said, why are you going to wait so long? I said, I have to find out what in me attracted him and what in him was attracted me. I have to find out what that attachment was.
Wow.
Because I chose him.
Yeah.
But I chose him. He chose me. I accepted him. He accepted me. And I saw the red flags. I knew there were red flags, and I totally ignored them. I said, I got to find out what it is that made me see pretty pink ribbons when there were things waving, waving red flags. Don't do this. Don't do this. Walk away. Why did I choose pretty pink ribbons when they were red flags? I said, something in him. I was attracted to something in him, and he was attracted to something in me. I have to find out what that is and eradicate it, because I'm not going through that experience again.
Good for you.
And that's the whole book was just, the whole experience, teaching through this entire story was an amazing, amazing experience. And then the fourth part of the book is just moving beyond. It's actually chronicling Leah's story with the names of the sons and what she had to do to get off from under that pile, and to go to the top and to gain the respect, gain the honor that she deserved all along.
Wow.
Had she been that kind of woman who knew she should have been respected, knew she deserved to be treated with love and high regard, she would have told her dad no. She would have suffered the consequences, which were in that culture not great. But she would have said, no, he doesn't love me, and I don't want to be attached to a man who doesn't love me. who won't treat me with the dignity, the respect, the honor that I deserve as his wife.
Amen.
And I believe as she changed, she became that person he could respect. She became that person he could treat with high regard. Because what the Bible says about her story is that Rachel, the favorite wife, the loved wife, and the Bible says that he loved Rachel, he hated Leah. Can you imagine? She's in a relationship. She became a breeder, and that was why he was intimate with her physically, because she was having children. So he needed sons. He started coming to her midnight tipping while Rachel remained barren. Well, Rachel dies way before she does. And he does not choose another wife. He stays connected to Leah. And at the end of his life, he says, bury me with Leah, which is significant.
Wow.
In our day and age, that doesn't mean a lot. But in those days, how you were buried, what they did with you was significant. It showed the level of respect people had for you. So for him to say, bury me with Leah, she's buried with my grandfather Abraham. She's buried with my father Isaac. Bury me with her is a significant outcome.
Wow.
So I know by the end of her life, as she names that last son, she says, you have to respect me.
Wow.
You have to give me my props. And she no longer accepts being unloved.
I love it.
And then when you start, it is great. When you read the extra books, they talk about how highly regarded Leah was and how wise she was. And how toward the end of her life, or the latter part of the marriage, after Rachel died, Jacob really began to rely on her woman skills, her intuition, her discernment, her wisdom. And he really began to rely on that as they move forward, raising a nation. So powerful. Her story is phenomenal. It took a little while for me to own it as my own story. But as I started to look at the pieces, it was, okay, you've been through all of that.
Yeah, your story is phenomenal.
You've dealt with misery. You've dealt with crazy attachments.
Yeah.
And attracting crazy people. And then now I'm at a stage in my life where I'm saying, if you want to date me, you have 3 strikes, and at the end of 3 strikes, we're done.
I love it.
I know how to unfriend.
Yes.
I know how to block phone numbers. I know how not to return phone calls. I know how to delete messages before I listen to them. I've got all kinds of new skills. I don't have to put up with that.
No. And women need to know that for sure. And
that's a message.
Awareness. And September is, there's a week in September. I believe it should be longer than a week, but Suicide Awareness Week was from the 6th to the 12th.
Wow.
It's only a week long, but suicide awareness is something that should be dealt with every day.
It should be more than a week.
And you're a blessing. Like, I love having you and I together. And I hope you come back soon.
As soon as you said, if you need me, you want me, I'm here. I'm here. I'm now, thanks to the Morning Glory phone calls. That was the name of the group. It was Corner Sisters. And we called it the Morning Glory phone calls. Thanks to them, I'm an early riser.
Wow.
Thanks to them.
That's why you wanted
to get up early.
You were ready for 8 a.m. I said 9 a.m., Dr. K.
Well, remember, I'm in Central Standard Time.
Yes.
So
I'm
9 a.m. for you is 8 a.m. for me.
Yeah. Oh.
So I was like, she said 8, and I'm looking at the invitation again. Thank you for sending me the new invite. And I'm thinking, oh no, she must live in the East Coast. Where do you live?
I'm in New Jersey. But
yep, you live in the East Coast.
Yeah. Let's sum it up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Can I tell people where to find my book?
Oh, yes. Tell everyone.
Thank you. You can reach me. My email is drk@thetiltedfedoratrainer.net.
Mm-hmm.
My webpage is thetiltedfedoratrainer.net. And yeah, it is long. It's a lot of typing. And my Facebook page, I have a they call it a celebrity. I'm like, oh, I got a celebrity page. But you can track my activities. In fact, we'll link this podcast on that as well. But you can track my activities on facebook.com/Fedora on Tilt.
Yes.
And then the book is also on Amazon. And I had the pleasure of selling my first international copy.
Wow.
So you can find it on Amazon as well. The Amazon link is on my celebrity Facebook page. And then you can find me as Cassandra Brown on straight Facebook. But please go to the Facebook page, like it, follow it. That's where all of my motivational information is.
Yes.
We add new posts 2 to 3 times a week. We're going to start adding some of my speaking engagements because I've got several opportunities where I've spoken, and we're going to start putting those on. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yes. And I'm going to leave all the information below as well, and also in my Facebook, Instagram, and all of that jazz. And I'm so happy that we did this.
I do an Instagram. I'm a little slow on the social media. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
You're the best.
Pratiba, thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Aww.
You're an awesome interviewer.
Thank you.
And a model.
Take my bow.